Susan Roberti, and welcome to Let's Talk Tail Waggers. We have a wonderful guest, a kind person, and he's actually coming back again. And we're going to talk about ticks. But before we get started, I have to say thank you to my camera person. Thank you, Dave. You know, BPTV is all volunteers, and you are more than welcome to come up and do a show, learn how to do cameras, very interesting, or just come up and visit our new station. It's absolutely beautiful. We're all enjoying it so very much. So now, I'm going to say hello, Doctor. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Perfect. Now that you're here.
That's good.
Yeah. Today you said you wanted to talk about ticks.
Ticks and Lyme disease, basically.
Yeah, that comes together.
Pretty much. Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah, dangerous.
We've been, in the past few years, we've gone from seeing, just at my clinic, we started seeing like 5 cases a year. And in the past 4 years, we've gone from 5 cases a year to over 200 cases a year.
This is dogs?
This is
And
dogs.
people?
Dogs. People get it too.
Yeah.
Cats can get Lyme disease. I have never seen one yet.
Oh.
I don't think they are as susceptible. People are the big ones that get Lyme, and people have much more of a problem with Lyme than dogs do. Dogs are next in line, and then cats come later. Horses also get Lyme. They're trying to figure out a way to vaccinate horses. There is a vaccine for dogs.
Is there?
Works fairly well. It's been on the
Yeah.
market for about 20 years and seems
Yeah.
to do a fairly nice job.
Oh, I never heard of that. I guess it's because the ticks are getting worse.
You know, unfortunately, we are not getting winter. In order to get rid of ticks, we need winters that are 5 months long and are cold for 5 months, not the 60 degrees, 20
Up and
degrees
down.
thing. We need 20 to 30 degrees for 5 straight months. That will kill off ticks, and our weather has not been like that. So consequently, the tick populations are way up, and we already had Lyme disease here, so now it's just, there's more, it's easier for Lyme to spread now.
Now, what should people look for?
When you have a dog that is acting, essentially the first sign that we see in dogs is they start limping around a little bit. The progression tends to be, this is kind of true for people, it tends to be you start with a skin lesion. In people, you get a big red circle, they call it a target lesion.
Okay.
Not all patients get a target lesion, most do. We will never see that on a dog or a cat for that matter because of their hair. You will never know that that ever happened. A few months after the bite is when your joints start to hurt. And is also true for people. You end up with the joint pain, you feel kind of achy. In dogs, they might be limping around a little bit. And then once they get through that phase, a few months later, dogs end up in kidney failure unless you figure out that they've got a problem.
Really?
In people, a few months after the joint problems is when people end up with neurological problems. All sorts of weird clinical signs come up in people, which are moderately scary. The difference is it's much more likely that people are going to get an actual clinical problem. They're actually going to feel sick from Lyme. It's much higher in people than it is in dogs. Dogs may actually be carrying Lyme in them. They just may not ever have a clinical problem from it.
Yeah.
And that's just, right now it's the whole scenario for Lyme disease in dogs and probably people is kind of a work in motion. No one's exactly sure what to do about it. Recommendations are changing every few years. It's like, let's do this, oh no, let's stop doing that, and let's do something else. And
Wow.
it's kind of one of those things, the first line of defense for all of us, 4-legged or 2-legged, is you have to do tick control. You have to do something. If we are out in the woods, they tell us to put something on to keep ticks off, whether it's DEET or something that works for you.
And tuck your pant legs in.
Yeah, exactly. In dogs, they need to be on something for ticks constantly. They have to do it year-round. Doesn't matter what product you're using as long as it works. And there are some products, there are several veterinary products on the market that do ticks and fleas together. There are several over-the-counter products that work. You have to be sure that the product is safe to use on your pet. There are tick products out there for dogs that do not work on, not they don't work on cats, the cats cannot use them because it will invariably kill them.
Oh.
So you have to read the label,
You
make
have
sure.
to read the labels.
Don't throw something on a cat that is for a dog because it may not be a good thing to do.
Now, when you put that medicine on the dog, then the tick will get on and bite them.
Right.
It falls right off right away.
Not right away. No, it actually should kill them within a few hours or maybe a day. The interesting thing is that Lyme, when the ticks are feeding, they are just kind of taking a blood meal. When they are done taking their blood meal is when they go through a detachment phase. This is real exciting.
You should know.
Exactly. The ticks actually, before they let go, they regurgitate, and that's what you do not want to happen. And that phase may be 24 to 48 hours after they start feeding, and when they're done feeding is when they regurgitate, and you do not want that to happen. Which is why when like if you've been out and about and you get home and you find a tick either on you or on the dog, you do not want to burn the tick off or put alcohol on them to make them let go, because they will regurgitate and then drop off.
Oh.
You want to use a tweezers or a forceps or something, you clamp them right by the skin and pull them off. Just as close to the skin, and you just yank the whole tick off and you're done.
I could never understand why people got crazy about putting.
Yeah, I think years ago that was really that was thought to be, how do you get rid of a tick, and then that's what you did. And now let's just say there's safer ways to do it.
Not so ugly.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, Lord. So how long does it take? Is there medicine?
If you end up with Lyme disease, if the dogs are clinical, or in some instances, if they're not, there are antibiotics. There's two antibiotics you can put them on. One is doxycycline, which is a tetracycline derivative, works fairly nicely. Or you can do amoxicillin, also works fairly nicely for Lyme. In either case, they need to be on the medication for 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
And after that, they seem to do fine.
Now, what about people?
The same is pretty true. My understanding is the same is true for people. They can do either doxycycline or amoxicillin. I'm actually not sure about the amoxicillin in people. I don't know if they go down that road in people or not.
Yeah. Well, what can we do? Can we spray our yards? It's high grass usually.
Yes. Beyond putting something on the dog for ticks, which is 12 months out of the year. Ticks are feeding year-round. I know it sounds disgusting, but if it's over the freezing point in the middle of winter, if it's over 32 degrees, the ticks will be out that day. They don't need, the way I think of it is with fleas or mosquitoes, they need a little warm weather before you actually start to see them, and that's not the case for ticks. So after tick control, the next step is keep your grass short, or if you have just a field close by, just mow it down so it's not so tall. You can spray your yard. That's not thought to be quite that helpful because invariably the ticks, your neighbor's ticks, are all going to come meandering in. Or the deer that carry the ticks are going to come through your yard and just drop new ticks on the ground. And if there's
now, are they the only ones, the little tiny deer tick, are the only ones that carry the Lyme disease?
Yes, the deer tick is a very tiny tick. It's about the size of a freckle, 2 to 3 millimeters, which is pretty tiny. And finding them on a dog, especially when it's got black fur, is to me next to impossible.
Feel.
Just feel. On us, it's just you can typically see them or feel them and then pull them off.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that the term deer tick does not necessarily come from the deer, the big four-legged ones that walk around. It actually is named after a deer mouse. The original, this is what I was told. When they originally were dealing with Lyme disease in Connecticut, they were finding the ticks that spread Lyme disease, they were finding them on a white-footed deer mouse. And why it's called the deer mouse, I have no clue, but that's where they found them. And around pretty much everywhere, the ticks pick up Lyme disease from the mice. And then they share it with people and dogs and whatever else. But
and the poor deer get blamed for it.
Well, the deer are culprits also, because the easiest way for a tick to travel around is on deer. And talking to people that hunt, the deer that are out there now have hundreds of ticks on them.
Oh, I
All
know.
of them do. A lot of them, they're concentrated in their armpits or in their groin, and they're just loaded with them. And that's how the ticks get around. And there has been some work that has shown that if you get the deer population in areas where the deer population is not as high, the incidence of human Lyme disease is much lower because there's no way for the ticks to travel around.
Now, do the deer get it?
I don't believe so. I don't think they are susceptible to Lyme disease. There are many species that are not, like the deer mice don't have problems with Lyme.
Yeah, and they wouldn't.
As far as I know, it's just people, horses, dogs, and cats. And cats are really low on the totem pole. And, but other than that.
It's frightening. And I don't think people really understand. I know my friends, when I start about Lyme disease, and they look at me like I'm crazy. They do.
Right.
But, I'll say, well, if you're going to be going out for a picnic over in the park or whatever, make sure you take, something to put on and watch the kids. Check them, all the time. And they'll crawl up their little short pants, and get in the dark.
Right.
And I try to say, please believe me, because this is true.
Right.
It's a terrible, terrible disease. And it's spreading.
Yes, it is. It's becoming much more prevalent. We went from 5 cases a year to 30 to 100. Last year we had 200. I'm assuming, the way it's going so far this year, I'm thinking we're going to hit 300 cases before the end of the year. In the middle of the state, they've had, their problem started several years before ours, and their problem is actually plateaued. And some of those clinics are seeing, like we saw 200 last year, some of the clinics in the middle of Pennsylvania saw like 1,200 to 2,000 cases in a year.
Oh,
and
my
that's
Lord.
And they're starting to get it under control because they're doing tick control, they're vaccinating, and kind of moving on.
Wow.
Which is a good thing, hopefully, but it's still, we're not there yet. We are going to see more before it gets better around here.
It's really, and we have to just pray for a couple really cold winters.
Right. Well,
and still, don't they hide under stuff?
They hide pretty much everywhere. When they're out looking for food, well, they're on the ground. They actually say that if you go out in the middle of winter, snow on the ground, if you get under the snow and pick up some leaves, invariably you will find a tick or two just laying there waiting for warm weather. And warm. Well,
that's where they live.
They have a very good antifreeze. They can actually live in sub-freezing temperatures for a very long time. And we proved this to ourselves at my clinic. We had a gentleman in last summer. We found a tick crawling on the dog, not feeding, just crawling on the dog. We took that tick, put it in a pill vial, and put it in the freezer of our refrigerator for a week and left it there. We pulled that out a week later and just put it on the table, and within an hour that tick was crawling around the jar again. So they need a very long frozen time before they're dead, which is a little spooky as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you wonder why Mother Nature made such a vicious thing. Really?
That is the never-ending question.
Yeah, when I meet God, I'm going to say to him, why did you make ticks and fleas and
cockroaches?
All,
why are they around?
Yeah, the crazy stuff.
Right.
Now, what about the big groundhog ticks? They don't carry the line.
No, there are many other ticks. There's an American dog tick and the brown dog tick are typically the ones you're going to find on your pets. They're fairly large, and when they feed, they get
fat,
pretty big, like the end of your finger kind of big. Those are disgusting, but they do
Yes,
they
yeah.
do spread some other problems that are not Lyme disease related. The issue with deer ticks is right now they're the big problem for spreading Lyme, but we have another tick that's working its way into Pennsylvania, which is coming from down south, which also spreads Lyme disease. And it is making its way here because of our weather. Our weather is becoming mild enough that it can survive up here. There's not enough winter to kill them off, so they're taking advantage of that.
And what do they look like?
They're actually called a Lone Star tick, and they're a little bit bigger than a deer tick, and they have a white blotch on their top of their back end.
Back. Wow.
But it's
And they just make it from animal to animal
yeah.
here?
The only the ticks pick up Lyme typically from the mice. They can pick it up from another animal that's carrying Lyme, but then they go feed. It's usually the young versions, the larvae and the nymphs, and the young adults in the spring can pick up Lyme feeding on another animal. And then later on in the summer is when they feed on another animal and they share it with us as much as we don't want it. But,
I know.
that's how it ends up in dogs and people and every other susceptible species.
And please, people, know that doctor's here to warn us, and it is very serious.
Yep.
It really is. And just because you don't live around a park or there's no deer anywhere, it does not mean that they're not crawling around.
Right,
and
exactly.
the little mice aren't crawling around, because they are.
And we've had cases to that point. Last summer I had a dog that ended up positive for Lyme, never went outside. The only time it went out on a second-story deck to go to the bathroom, and it went back in the house.
Oh my God.
And it ended up turning positive for Lyme. Now, there were other dogs that came in the house with that dog, and which could have probably brought the ticks in, but we can bring ticks in on our clothes. If you're out in the woods or out in tall grass, ticks will grab on, and that's all ticks do is stand on the edge of leaves or grass with their legs up, waiting for somebody to come by. And then once they grab onto somebody, they're going to follow you wherever you go. And then if they...
when I had my business, I used to tell people that you can bring fleas in on your shoes.
Right.
It isn't, because they would, when they'd come in and I'd say, oh, Sassy has a couple fleas here, you're going to have to watch. And, what do you mean? She's not around any other dogs and we have our yard sprayed and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, you have people coming home and they walk home from work, from the streetcar, and it's probably on their sock or their shoe, and they jump on them.
Right.
So, I mean, you have to be watching all the time.
Be diligent. That's all there is to it.
Yes, it's true.
That is a good thing.
Yes. So, what about spading?
Well, that is something that is helpful on several levels. There are certain problems are avoided. Essentially, the dog going into heat every 6 months, which can make all the male dogs in the neighborhood happy, but might drive you crazy. Yeah. There is some benefit, and this is actually work. Originally, it was thought that spaying was the be-all to end-all to prevent breast cancer in dogs. If they were spayed before they ever had a heat, in theory, they would never get breast cancer, which to a certain extent is true, but more recent research is finding that that is not necessarily the case, and you can probably spay a little later in life in regards to breast cancer, and still it won't change anything one way or the other. But it's also, the biggest reason is the pet overpopulation problem. There is not a shelter in this country that is not full
Just
constantly. And for the shelters that prefer not to euthanize, they have waiting lists that are months long.
It's pathetic.
Yes.
And now this is the time that the babies are being born.
Right.
And it just breaks your heart. I do shows down at South Hills Rescue.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I adore them. And it just breaks my heart because he had 12 puppies, and they were like coon dog and this, in that kind of thing. They brought him up from down south. And oh, they were the dearest little babies.
That's nice.
Oh, God. And he found them homes. People came in and was taking them out to the time. And then plus you feel so bad because he said, Nick said down there, they just put them to sleep. It's just, they have no mercy, boom, 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 and that's it. So people go down and bring them back, and oh, these puppies. But he said we could go down there every day and bring the puppies back.
Well, the same as, there's a lot of that going on locally here. There's a lot of the shelters that just, they can't take puppies because they have no room.
Yeah.
So people end up, they try to get on the waiting list, or they try to figure out another way to.
Well, foster them out.
Right.
Sometimes they foster them out.
There are, and most of the shelters have foster programs. It would be great if they could have many more people willing to do foster, because that's a tough job. It's you're taking in a dog that you don't know, and you have to kind of learn its idiosyncrasies, and then kind of.
And then you fall in love with it.
Exactly. There are
and
many
foster failures.
Exactly. There are many foster failures out there, and people. I know I'm a foster failure. It's okay. You gave a pet a home. That's a good thing.
Yeah. But there, I had another organization here, and I'm ashamed I can't remember the name of it. But there were 3 young ladies, and they have a group that they just fostered the dogs out.
Right.
They bring them to them, and they get them cleaned up and shots and everything. Then they foster them out. But they go quick.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, they go quick. Are we doing any better on the pit bulls?
In what way?
Stopping them being just babies.
I don't know. I don't know if that's changed at all. I know a lot of shelters, there's still the largest breed is a pit bull.
Yeah, and they stay the longest. It's
mostly
sad.
because of the stigma that goes with them. I actually have a pit.
Do you?
Very nice dog. They actually make fairly nice house pets. There's an interesting, what people think about pits and what is the reality of pits can be 2 very different things. Yes, they are used for fighting, but there are 9 other breeds that can be used for fighting. So if pits go away, there's still going to be dog fighting. It's not going to magically go away.
Yeah.
But pits actually are good with people, kids, doesn't matter. The issue is they want to please their master. And if the master wants them to fight, they're going to go fight.
Aww.
And that's the way they are. And there's a really good documentary that you can get on Netflix. It's called Champions. It documents the entire process from when Michael Vick, when he was caught with his dogs, and they took all of his dogs, and I believe there were 200 of them or something like that.
He has
it chronicled their rehab, because they opened up a facility just for those dogs and took them through their entire process. They got all but 1 dog adopted into a home.
Aww.
It was really amazing.
Well, sometimes, I don't know, but I've heard this, that if you have 3 of them or 4 of them, it's not good.
I honestly, I don't think that's. I also don't know about that. I know I know several people that have multiple pits. And again, unless they're used for fighting or have been trained to fight, that should not be an issue.
Well,
honestly, I don't know though. I'm not that familiar
that's
with it.
what I understood, and I've often wondered if that was true, because I see people walking them, many of them.
Right.
Yeah, and they are guard dogs. They guard their master.
They are they love their family. Let's put it that way. And they still make. There's several breeds that are like that though, that are very defensive when other people or other dogs are around.
Well, weren't they smaller back in the 20s and 30s? And then because Spanky in our gang had one, and he was like a smaller pit. And then as time went on, people started making them bigger, and they've got them bigger and bigger. Because, oh.
Just, well, for the fighting, I could see where that may have happened.
Yeah. And why do you want to fight dogs?
That I have no clue.
Could you imagine being there and hearing them scream?
Yeah,
It's like, oh my God, please don't do it. And my grandfather raised beagles. His dogs were really beautiful. They really were smart too. They were good hunters, and they are.
Yeah.
You know, and people that get beagles have to understand that when you take them for a walk, they will use their noses,
right,
and they will drag you in a ground hole, in a hog hole, and you just better be able to pull it back because that's their job.
They can be very focused.
Yeah, and people, please, I tell them all the time, please, when you're going to get a puppy, think about it.
Right. No, that's.
You know.
Puppies are a lot of work, that's for sure.
Yeah, but what kind of dog are you going to get? And even if you get a mixed breed that's part beagle and part something else, they'll still be great hunters.
Yeah.
Poodles are great hunters.
Yeah, they are.
They're the greatest hunters in the world, the standards.
Right.
They really are. Oh.
They're fairly fast also, which is a huge help.
And the little ones, the miniature ones, to watch them, they're fantastic. Oh my Lord, they'll shock you.
Right.
They really will. But they're not foo-foo dogs like people think
No.
that they are. You know, and they had the haircuts for that reason, so that it kept them safe. You know, like going through barbed wires
right.
and things like that. So there's a reason for everything. But back to ticks. What do you want to? Yeah.
Well, the big take-home message is the first line of defense is tick control. Find a product you like and run with it. We have several that, you know, the veterinary world has about 50 different ones. We have about a half a dozen. Over the counter, there's another 50 or 100. Find one that if you've used one before and it works, keep using it and just do it year round. And then the second line of defense is to think about vaccinating, because that adds an extra layer of protection.
Oh, I would.
So that they do not get Lyme. I have not had a dog yet that was on tick control and vaccinated get Lyme disease.
Yeah. Now the collars.
Some of them work.
They work?
Some of them work. There's several different ones on the market. Again, some of them are only for dogs.
Yeah.
My feeling is try something out. If you're consistently finding ticks feeding, and I don't care what the product is, if you're picking ticks off that are attached fairly frequently, you need to try something else.
Yeah.
And to me, it's that particular product does not work on that dog. Or pet, however you want to look at it. And try something different. And there's topical ones that go on between the shoulders. There's oral ones that work very nicely, and the margin of safety on most of these is fairly big. And then the spraying the yard and stuff like that.
Guess what? It's time to go.
Oh wow, we're out. That was quick.
Everybody says it. They really do. Well, I got to go fast. So don't forget your humane societies. Send them sheets and towels and blankets, anything that you would not give to the homeless. Send them to the Humane Society, because they really, money they need, but they need to have things that the mummies can have their babies on, and the doctors need to wrap them up after surgery and stuff. They really need that. And I don't really know anything else to say, but I love you, and thank you for all the lovely things that you say to me when you see me. I really appreciate it. And thanks from all the tail waggers.